The apartment was silent except for the low buzz of the hollow screen, its faint light washing over the dim room. Rail Thornwood sprawled on his couch, one leg slung over the armrest, scrolling through his wristlink's news feed. It had been a brutal day, the city's noise still rang in his ears, and all he craved was quiet. But quiet, he'd soon discover, was a pipe dream. A flicker of violet sparked in the corner of his eye. Before he could blink, a figure shimmered into existence right in front of him. She was tall, lean, and, well, not human. Not in a slimy, tentacled way, but in a too flawless to be real way. Her skin shimmered, flipping between lavender and pale blue under the artificial glow. Big, glowing eyes locked onto him, unblinking, while two thin antennae peeked from her silky hair, twitching like they were scanning the room. Rail froze as she stepped closer, her face inches from his. "Human," she said, head tilting, voice smooth but cold, like a doctor sizing up a lab rat. He jolted. Excuse me?" She didn't wait for permission. Her fingers brushed his thigh, and Rail tensed, scrambling upright. Hey, personal space." Unfazed, she stared downward, frowning, then poked him, right there. Rail yelped, nearly launching off the couch. "What are you?" Her brows lifted. "Fascinating." It reacted. Heat flooded his face. "Hold on, what the hell are you doing?" She crossed her arms, clinical as ever. I observed an involuntary response. Direct stimulation triggers immediate reaction in your breeding tool. Rail choked. "My what?" "Your reproductive appendage," she clarified, nodding like she'd cracked a code. It expanded rapidly. "A natural function, I presume. Does it signal mating readiness?" His brain shorted out. "No, well, yes, but that's not the point." He groaned, rubbing his face. "Who are you, and how do you get in here?" She straightened. "I am Zell, researching human physiology and reproductive behavior for the Intergalactic Scientific Collective." He gaped. "The what now?" "A body studying lesser developed species across the galaxy," she said flatly. "Lesser developed?" Rail scowled. "Rude." "Statistically accurate," she countered. "Your civilization's stuck on one planet, no interstellar tech. That ranks you low on the galactic intelligence scale." He pinched his nose. "Great. First you break in, then you insult humanity, and now," he froze, glancing down. His body was still, reacting. "Oh, stop looking." He snatched a cushion, covering himself. Zell blinked, then nodded. Embarrassment from reproductive exposure. Socially ingrained, or an evolutionary quirk to delay mating? Neither, he snapped, mortified. She ignored him, summoning a sleek, floating notepad. Holographic symbols danced as she scribbled. Human males show visible reproductive activation under stimuli. Inquiry, exclusive to touch, or triggered by visuals, sense, telepathy. Rail's face burned tomato red. "I'm not discussing that with a random alien." Zell paused. "I'll research independently then." "No, you won't." She considered. "Would you prefer a controlled experiment?" His soul vacated his body. "Absolutely not." Silence. Zell eyed the cushion, then him, finally softening. "I may have crossed a social line." "May have?" He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "Look, Zell, I get you're here for data, but next time, ask first." She nodded solemnly. "Understood." I'll request permission before touching your breeding tool. Rail nearly blacked out. The screen dimmed, the city's hum seeping in. He took a deep breath. This night was just beginning. Rail sat rigid, mind reeling between horror and the urge to rewind the last 10 minutes. Zell stood across from him, studying him with cool curiosity, her glowing eyes tracking his every twitch. "All right," he said, voice tight, "let's back up. You appear in my living room, start poking me, and now you're taking notes on my—" he waved a hand, flustered. "Stuff that's off limits." Zell tilted her head. "I was gathering data." "Lady, you didn't even buy me dinner first." She paused. "Is nourishment a mating prerequisite?" He slapped his face. "That's not what I meant." Zell stepped closer. "Your distress suggests this is taboo." "Yes," he shouted. "Super taboo, don't he ever bring it up taboo." She tapped her chin. "Interesting. Other species are open about reproduction. Good for them. Humans like privacy." She raised a brow. "Yet you produce endless explicit digital media." "Nope." Rail's voice hit a new pitch. "Not having this conversation." Zell studied him, then nodded. "Understood. I'll adjust for human sensitivities." He sighed, relieved. "Thank you." Pause. "Would passive observation be preferable?" He groaned, hands in his face. "That's worse." She frowned, puzzled. "My goal is scientific." "Right, because breaking in and poking me is normal science. It's standard for intergalactic field study," she said, deadpan. Rail threw up his hands. "News flash, I'm not your experiment." "Incorrect," she replied. "You're my primary subject." He flopped back, defeated. "Lucky me." Zell scrolled her notepad, muttering, "Subject Rail Thornwood shows stress when discussing reproductive functions, possible causes, cultural conditioning, social fear, or personal insecurity. Further analysis needed." He bolted upright. "Personal insecurity? Don't assume stuff." She tapped her screen. "Noted. Subject resists personal analysis." Rail sighed, exhausted. "Why me?" Zell observed his despair. "Your emotional range is fascinating. Do all humans react this strongly?" "No," he muttered, eyes shut. "Just the ones with boundaries." She scribbled, "Subject prefers personal boundaries. Individual trait or cultural norm." "No more observation," he deadpanned. "That contradicts my objective," she said. He clutched his chest, dramatic. "Oh no, what a tragedy. Guess you'll have to leave." "I live here now," she stated. His brain crashed. "I'm sorry, what?" "I require prolonged observation," she explained. "I'll cohabitate until my data's complete." "You can't just move in." "I'm asking now." "No?" She frowned. "Why not?" "It's my house." He gestured wildly. "You don't waltz in, call it a lab, and stay. That's illegal." She tapped her chin. "On my planet, researchers embed in subjects' habitats for accuracy. This is Earth. We have personal space and privacy laws." She nodded. "Understood. I'll adjust." He sighed, relieved. "Thank you." "I'll observe from a distance," she said, tapping her notepad. "Subject prefers indirect study." He froze. That's not what I. You're a difficult subject, she noted. I'm difficult? He threw his hands up. I'm not the one breaking in to poke people. Her antennae twitched. Would you prefer I study someone else? He blinked. What? If I distress you, I'll select another human. He pictured her barging into some stranger's home, notepad in hand. Oh no, that'd be a disaster. Against his better judgment, he muttered, Fine, stay here. Less chaos that way. She smiled, too pleased. Excellent. Research continues. He groaned. I just doomed myself, didn't I? Zell resumed her notes. Rail slumped, elbows on knees, staring at the floor. An alien was now his roommate, an alien who'd just documented his most awkward moment. He rubbed his temples, willing the night to vanish. Zell sat opposite, unfazed, scrolling her notepad like she'd just won the science lottery. All right, he muttered, you're here for research. Correct, she nodded. And you just pop into people's homes and start poking? Correct. He groaned. That's not normal. She glanced up. Would you prefer another method? Yeah, like asking permission first. She hummed. Humans prefer consent-based exams? As opposed to what? Non-consensual observation? He gawked. She blinked. Correct. He dragged his hands down his face. Fantastic. Zell scribbled, humans require verbal consent for contact. Intriguing, many species don't. Okay, but we're not them, he said. If someone pokes you, you can say no. She nodded. Noted. When is physical contact acceptable? He sighed, cornered. Fine. There's casual stuff, handshakes, pats. Affectionate stuff, hugs, hand-holding. And, his face heated. Intimate stuff, for people who are close. Define close, she pressed. Romantically involved, he mumbled. So contact ties to attachment? Generally, yeah. She hummed. If I touched you again, when would it be acceptable? His face flamed. It wouldn't. Even for research? Especially for research. She sighed. Alternative methods then. He leaned back. Progress. A tiny drone appeared beside her. He stared. What's that? An observation unit, she said. If touch is out, I'll monitor passively. His stomach twisted. Monitoring? It'll track behavior, physiology, non-invasive. He shot up. No way. She blinked. Why not? You rejected touch. I don't want a space drone stalking me 24/7. Humans live under constant surveillance, cameras, trackers. Why is this different? Because it's not in my home. His stomach dropped. You didn't put cameras here, did you? Her gaze slid sideways. Define, installed. Oh my God. He groaned. Uninstall them. She sighed, tapped her notepad. A chime sounded, and tiny devices flickered and vanished. 17, she said. 17? He clutched his chest. Minimum for accuracy. He flopped down, defeated. I'll never sleep again. If it helps, it was purely scientific. Not comforting. She paused. Manual notes instead? That's not the point. He exhaled. You get it now? She tapped her chin. You're sensitive about reproduction, a cultural aversion. One way to put it. Observation complete, she said. Phase 2 begins. His stomach sank. What? I'll compare your responses across variables, more subjects needed. He paled. No, you won't. Why not? You'll spark a catastrophe. She nodded. Then all experiments stay on you. His soul fled. I've screwed myself. Zell smiled, scribbling. Rail sat stiff, every muscle coiled, braced for more madness. Zell calmly took notes, her glowing eyes darting between her screen and his panicked face. Let's clarify, he said, raising a finger. No testing random humans? Correct, she nodded. One subject only. Me? Yes. He groaned, flopping back. I hate your phrasing. Would you prefer less structure? No, never mind. He exhaled. Fine, you're staying. But we've got rules. She blinked. Rules? House rules, he snapped. No turning my life into your lab without acting like a decent roommate. Specify parameters. First, no invasive experiments, cameras, heat tests, or messing with me asleep. She nodded. Confirmed, no unconscious observations. I hate that wording. She ignored him. Next. Personal space. No touching, poking, or hovering 6 inches from my face when I wake up. Proximity observation 2. He squinted. How close? 2.3 inches. Yes, that's too close. She hummed. Humans dislike close-range study. It's common sense. He groaned. Minimum 3 feet unless it's an emergency. Understood. Define emergency. Distress, injury, illness, reasonable stuff. And biological assessment or environmental shifts. He squinted. Don't get weird. She nodded. Acknowledged. Next. Don't touch my stuff, phone, computer, clothes, food, without asking. He paused. Wait, do you eat? Yes, synthesized compounds mostly, but some human foods. Which ones? A holographic list appeared, edible human materials. Bread, fruit, proteins, no chocolate, dairy, sodium. So normal food, kinda? Correct. Humans use verbal contracts, overreact to money, cling to possessions, she noted. That's privacy. Material attachment, she countered. He glanced at his clutter, mugs, books, junk. Damn it, maybe. She nodded. Acknowledged. Let's set behavior rules, he said. Blend in, or I'm on a watch list. Logical. Proceed. Personal space, 3-foot bubble. Confirmed. No public alien scans. Private only, she agreed. Cover story, Icelandic exchange student. Icelandic perceptions? Cold, volcanoes, elf myths. Elves? Her eyes gleamed. Myths, he clarified. She frowned. Disappointing. Next, no random nudity. Nudity's taboo? Yes. My species doesn't need clothes. Humans do. No stripping, or I'll have a heart attack. Human males averse to nudity, she wrote. Why's everything an experiment? It's amusing, she smirked, He groaned. I regret this. Unlikely, she said. You're rich now, and I'm stimulating. That's not good. Disagree. You're impossible. Your impossible roommate, she grinned. He sighed, defeated. My life now.